Hey, Barbara.
Got my computer back, thank goodness for that.
Ah, well, that makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, it's so hard doing everything on the tablet because it's so tiny.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I like to have my laptop just for things like this, and I prefer the PC for everything else.
Yes, absolutely. Personally, I'm a fountain pen woman.
Well, yes, indeed. You know, here am I with my trusty notebook.
Yeah, me too.
Like we are recording, so everything what we say is being held in evidence against us. I don't know how many people are turning up. I guess I could have a look to see if I don't think anybody else has emailed. Yes. Oh well, no, nobody there. Right. Back to the Zoom. Right, there we go. Hey. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is all going all right so far. Alan gave me a bit of advice on how to get things going, and I'm just looking and thinking, gosh, am I going to be able to share my screen okay? But I hope so.
I think the challenging thing about the screen sharing is that then you can't see what everybody else can see.
Yeah.
But
I've made a presentation and it's on the cloud. So normally I put it on my desktop, but I can't do that. So I'm just hoping that when the time comes, I will be able to do that. Oh, here's Lisa. Very good. Hello, Lisa.
Hi there.
Hi, you're looking very elegant.
Oh, am I? I've gosh, that's good. Okay, I'll leave it.
Very good, very good. I'm just saying to Barbara that I haven't done screen sharing when the thing that I'm sharing is on a cloud. So I'm just hoping that it will all be.
Oh, that's fine. It won't make any difference. It's sharing your screen, not your cloud access.
Yes. Yes, it's just a matter of how do I.
Barbara, I don't think I've properly met you before.
Well, let me do my introductions. This is Barbara Bond. This is Snelling. Yes. So Lisa is my usual go-to person for anything research, because she has got a PhD in Shiatsu and multiple sclerosis. And here's Hannah Mackay. And Barbara is my go-to person for things to do with NHS and everything else.
Oh, very good.
And Barbara is now on the board. Hello, Hannah.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah.
Our lights have all gone off. Weirdly.
How are you, Hannah?
Some kind of electrical circuit.
Oh, dear.
Look a bit Halloweeny.
Is it just you, or is it your neighbourhood?
No, the computer's still on. It's just the lights. Someone else is sorting it out. That's my cat, Lisa.
I know. I'm a witch, and this is my cat.
He's like confusing everyone by being a white cat, pretending to not be a witch's cat.
Oops. Oh, it's a she actually, and she's just turned off my computer. Can you all see me?
She can still see you.
Oh God, panic there. She pressed, I've got a couple of keys on my keyboard, and one is the sun shining, another has the sun gone dim. Oh look, you've got your lights. Oh,
they're back on.
Hooray! The lights are back on.
Yay!
How are you, Hannah? Long time no see.
Oh, I've had a ridiculously busy work day, but other than that, I'm all right.
Oh,
Yes, it is a long time no see, Lisa.
yeah.
It's probably the before times was the last time I spoke to you.
The before time.
The before times, before the pandemic.
Oh, I
like
see.
to call them
Yes.
the before times.
Yeah, it was a long
I was going
time.
to say before the new Shiatsu Society regime. That was even more
I wasn't
before.
thinking about the Shiatsu Society regime. We did have a chat on the phone at some point. Oh no, they've gone again. Back to darkness.
Yay. Well, there we are.
It's the kettle. The kettle's trying to make a cup of tea and it's breaking the lights.
Jolly fine. Well, I'm not sure who all we are expecting. I had hoped that Shnezana would come because she had some questions which we had been throwing about proms. Oh, Ludmilla Edwards. Very good.
Is there talk back from? I've got my. I'll just put my.
Right. I'm not getting talk back. Oh, I see. Yes, you've muted yourself. Okay, fine. Jolly good. So welcome, Ludmilla. I can't see you yet, but I'm sure you are coming in. We are recording so that if anybody doesn't manage the meeting, as I said earlier to my colleagues, all of this is being held in evidence against us. Nah. We are doing fine. We are doing fine. It's nice to see you three ladies who have got experience in research. Can you hear us okay, Ludmilla?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Great. Hi.
Hello,
there.
we can't see you, Ludmilla.
No, we won't be able to. Sorry, camera's bust.
That's okay. No problems at all. No problems at all.
You
Good.
can still see a tiny bit of Lisa's cat. Just a little tiny bit.
That's all right. And you don't want to see my dog. He is at least being quiet. Right, you've got another. Okay, Barbara has got another meeting at 7:30. Well, it's now 3 minutes past. And I wonder whether I should just start. Yes. Okay. So I'm kind of aware that 2 of you here present have been on the Shiatsu Society's research committee in the past and have, yes, there we go. Hannah and Lisa have both been involved. Barbara, who is another board member, has, I think, probably done some research in her previous job as an NHS nurse in hospices. And so I'm kind of aware that in doing this this Zoom meeting, which we had hoped that several people would come to, but there aren't people here. It's really to kind of set the scene for where we are just now in the society with research, and then look at what we might do in the future. Should we just very quickly go around and say, you know, where we are with research, just very, very quickly, just kind of 2 or 3 minutes each, and then we can get on with a little presentation which I have made, which I hope is going to work. Okay, so Barbara, beginning with B, do you want to just say who you are and what?
Yep, okay. So I have recently retired from working in a hospice. And I've also worked in education and more widely in the NHS. But I think I'm very, very aware of how difficult it can be to get Shiatsu as a new modality introduced into clinical settings. The clinical effectiveness setup it's very Western orientated, and actually in some ways I don't think that they approach it very scientifically either, because it really depends on how open the clinicians that you're working with are. But it is a tremendous barrier, because having done a lot of comp therapy in hospices with not only cancer patients either, highly effective with people with neurological conditions, and supporting carers with people with things like COPD. There's some research that shows that the carers of people with COPD watching their relative fight for breath often get PTSD. So it seems to me an absolute no-brainer that you could teach them some Shiatsu very easily, that at least would help with that, because the major contributory factor is actually the fact that they feel so helpless to do anything. And of course, I'm sure that now that's compounded by the fact that if they call for help, it will take forever to come. But the major thing that's holding us back is having a body of research that will actually be accepted by clinicians. So yeah, I think that's why I'm passionate about it.
Great, thank you very much, Barbara. Well, alphabetically, let's go to Hannah next.
Hello. Yes, I was thinking, oh, where am I with the whole Shiatsu research kind of idea? So my background is I've got a PhD in psychotherapy research, which was process research on the back of a large comparative trial. And I did an evidence review for NICE when I was in my 20s, back in the day. And I also then did some other research work and worked on the project that was funded by the European Shiatsu Federation. I did the first bit of that, doing the qualitative research, devising the measure that was used. And yeah, I feel a bit ambivalent about research at the moment. I kind of feel like probably the sense of how much you would have to do to actually get a body of research so that you could sort of say, right now this is shown that Shiatsu is effective for X, Y, Z. And that's probably strategically, that's probably not what we should be doing. You know, we probably should be building on, I was kind of thinking, have there been any more Cochrane reviews of anything else other than the fact that Hot Protector 6 works as acupressure? You know, it's like we should be, I don't know that now because I haven't been involved with it that much. But sort of thinking, you know, what are the conditions for which acupuncture's is NICE accredited? You know, I was reading quite an interesting research article in the New Scientist about chronic pain, and which said that somebody was writing about their family experience and sort of said that CBT and acupuncture were what was indicated for the sort of pain condition that their relative had, and kind of thinking, well, you know, like if you've got CBT and acupuncture, you know, really we kind of fit into that kind of area. I think it was kind of fibromyalgia kind of thing. So kind of being in those places where medically speaking people know that there isn't really anything that they can offer, that's probably an area to be in. And I was also thinking there's this whole case reports thing, which really was part of what was indicated when we paid for the evidence review by the people several years ago. And I don't feel like I kind of think, how would that fit in with my practice? Like, I kind of feel quite anti at the moment, anti-measurement, and sort of, although I think my practice is really, really effective, you know, and it's kind of like, how would you actually put that in with clinical practice? So that's where I am.
Fine, thanks very much, Hannah. That's good to know where you are and your honesty about that. Alphabetically, next we're going to do Lisa and then Ludmilla. How about that? Okay, so Lisa.
Oh, I thought you're doing it alphabetically by surname. Yeah. I'm a jumble in my brain. Now, where am I with research at the moment? Well, just my background for those who don't know me. So I've worked as a Shiatsu practitioner since 2004. I qualified actually in 2005. And through my training, I was working as a researcher, and then I wanted to do something with research in Shiatsu. And I'd worked on a study in which all the results were analyzed by a therapist for controlling for a phenomenon known as therapist effect. And I thought, oh, that sounds relevant, important in any kind of therapy. And at the time, Zoe Peary had finished her study. She did a really nice study, feasibility of offering Shiatsu in primary care. And I remember thinking, well, she's a very good, experienced therapist. So maybe, people did so well because of her, not because of Shiatsu per se. And who knows, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe something combination of the two. Anyway, so I decided that's what I wanted to look at in more detail. So I did a PhD, and because I'd had experience working with neurological conditions, had the support of the MS Society. So did a part observation, part measurement study of Shiatsu being administered to people with MS. And I had 5 therapists, and each treated 2 patients. So it was interesting. And it did show that therapist effects were revealed in the study results, because it is a quantitative phenomenon. But what I was really interested in looking at, what is it? What does it look like in Shiatsu? So I did an analysis of videos. It took me ages. So since August of this year, as well as running my practice and working for a local charity, I became course director of the online MSCs at the Northern College of Acupuncture, and we're just in a big gear up phase of relaunching the MSCs, one of which is for Shiatsu practitioners. And so if people want to become adept at research, or just to have good research knowledge and to advance their skills, I won't do the whole sales pitch here, but that's what we're preparing for. And there's running in parallel an equivalent MSc for acupuncturists and one for nutrition therapists. So where am I with research? I strongly believe there's a role for Shiatsu, as there is for all other complementary therapists in this post-COVID era, with people suffering, just tagging on to what Barbara was saying, people suffering with long COVID symptoms, and there is nothing medically that can be done except for, people whose breathing deteriorates. Maybe they have a CPAP machine that they have in their home, and they have to breathe through that, or because of that. And for other symptoms, but there isn't a lot that I can ascertain. And I think if we could scout around for funding opportunities and any institutions that are interested in collaborating, it's only a tiny little job that would take hours each week to do. That would be really good. And to look at effectiveness, to look at cost effectiveness, I think would be very, very useful. There's a huge public health need for that, not just in this country either. Maybe there's room for more collaboration with the European Shiatsu Federation. I don't know. So I'm not at all like Hannah. I'm not ambivalent. I think it's needed. I think it's relevant. I think it's important. And I'm prepared to grow researchers who will do the work as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Okay.
Ludmilla, would you like to say something about where you're at with research?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, thank you.
Oh, amazing. I'm nowhere with the research at all, except personal interest. I actually happen to work in NHS at the moment. I work with people who are very frail and transfer to us as I'm a therapy practitioner. I don't use Shiatsu as such with my patients, but slowly, I have been using it for years, ever since I've started to actually study it in Manchester. I've been enlightening my co-workers about the benefits and about a potential way to reduce our stress in that environment, which seems to be effective and appreciated, that's for sure. But us doing it as a research, I haven't done anything official. So that's why I'm here, hoping to get to know more.
Great. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And well, I'm Elaine, and I have no real background in research at all, except a great interest, because I see that there is an enormous need for it, as Barbara said to begin with, to get it out there, and in particular in liaising with officialdom, the establishment, the powers that be, and all these things. And particularly in regard to what we can and cannot say about Shiatsu. So I think if it's all right with you, I'm just going to see if I can screen share this presentation that I have made, and then we can just kind of talk about that. How about that? Does that sound all right? Yep. Okay, screen share. And of course it's not there. Righty right. Okay, I'll shut that down. Now, I wonder if I can share this. No, that's oh yes it is. There it is. Very good. No, and not. What can you see, people? Can you see a PowerPoint presentation behind me? No, nothing at all. There we are. You see, I knew that if it was in yon cloud, it would be totally useless. Right, hang on a minute. Save as, download a copy. There we go. Right, download. This is where everybody sees how really dreadful I am at all of the techie stuff.
It somehow becomes more pressured when there's a group of people watching you.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, indeed. Let me just move you upwards. Share screen. Aha, there it is. Jolly good. Okay. Now, of course, if I was very clever, then I would have put it into present mode, but I don't suppose I can do that now. So there we are. You'll just have to put up with the.
If you just click on where it says the menu above slideshow and play from current slide or play from beginning. That's it. Up a bit further. Other side. Right.
Along. Right. I have got my my Zoom things in the way.
Well, we can see it.
Wait a minute. Aha, slideshow. Even so, I've just moved you all. Slideshow. From the beginning. There we go. Wonderful. There we go. Hallelujah. All right. So information for members. This is probably all going to get changed after we've talked. But there we go. Research already conducted. So the Society has, in fact, had a research committee in the past, and up until last year, beginning of last year, we did have a research director, but we haven't had an active committee for so long. Notably, the society itself has been involved in 3 pieces of research. One is the Professor Long research, which Hannah was involved in, and here is Emma coming in. Hi, Emma. I'm just doing the presentation here.
And Lisa was involved in it as well, weren't you, Lisa?
I was the next stage of it. I did the other bit of analysis for
right.
adverse events. That's
Okay, great, excellent, excellent. So you know, we had quite a lot of input from us into that. Obviously, it was funded by the ESF, which we have just rejoined, and it was a cross-European study. So it was the UK, Spain, and Austria, I do believe. No, I
Germany.
Oh, Germany.
Germany,
right.
rather than Austria.
Okay, beg your pardon. Right. All right. So the second bit of research that we were involved in was Nicola Robinson and Eva Lorenk et al., which I think was commissioned by the Shiatsu Society, and I know that Lisa was involved. Well, I think you were both in, Hannah and Lisa, you were both around in the research committee at the time. And so this was a review of all of the research there has been into shiatsu and acupressure. I believe that since then there have been other similar reviews, I think by Andrea Kleinow. However, I didn't put everything into the slide. And the third one by Michael Boyd and Carol Chantler was a piece of research which the Society did evaluating shiatsu treatment using MyMop. We've got other research up on the Shiatsu Society's website, both the members page and the public areas. Why do we need it? So this is really addressing what Barbara had said and other people early on, so that we can show other medical organizations, clinicians, other complementary therapists and associations and the public about the benefits and effects of shiatsu. These days, research is just needed. Otherwise, you can't stand up and say, well, we can say that it is good for this and that. And also to provide evidence so that the Advertising Standards Authority will allow shiatsu practitioners to say that shiatsu can be used for specific health conditions. And this kind of is where it really interfaces the advertising issue, but also where most therapists would see that research is really necessary, because as we had earlier on this year, a case where one of our members, who is a registrant with the CNHC, had their website taken down because they had said, oh, shiatsu can be used for la la la. But that wasn't on the list of things that the Advertising Standards Authority had said and had agreed with CNHC, but had said that we can say about shiatsu. And so she had to change her advertising and so on. And so members tend to get quite annoyed and hot under the collar that we can't say things about shiatsu when we know that it can be used for this and that, but that isn't necessarily accepted by the powers that be. Going on to recent developments, so the Professional Standards Authority, which is a government-ish body, which governs accredited registered, so everybody who's on an accredited register of, and that is I believe voluntary registers and statutory registers. So for example, your doctor will be under the General Medical Council, your dentists are under the Dental Council, chiropractors and osteopaths have got their own things. If you are a psychotherapist, you will be on a voluntary register, but it will be accredited, and so on. Shiatsu, of course, is not a protected title like doctor chiropractor, dentist, physiotherapist, which does mean that anybody can say that they are a Shiatsu practitioner. But by having a strong professional association and signing up to accredited registers, and the accredited register for complementary therapists is the CNHC, this means that our standards can be, if you like, looked at by people official. So the Professional Standards Authority did a kind of review into research, and the CNHC submitted 2 pieces of research to the Professional Standards Authority, who then rated them as moderate to strong. I ran them past Lisa, and she said one of them was strong and the other one she wasn't so sure about because of the methodology. But the latest from the Integrated Healthcare Collaborative meeting, which we had last week, Margaret Coates, who's the CEO of CNHC, said that they are now encouraging the Professional Standards Authority to be in touch with the ASA, Advertising Standards Authority, who at the moment really only accept randomized controlled trials as a research method, which is very difficult, intricate, costly, and quite difficult for complementary therapies to organize. So we're hoping that the ASA will start to accept other forms of research. Now, I was in touch with them recently, as I said in the last month's Zoom thing, and they had said that they didn't have time to be able to look at other people's, other research methods. That wasn't really their job, and there wasn't really a problem until somebody complained, in which case we would be asked to give evidence. And so evidence basically is research. So what can we do? I mean, research methodology, and Hannah and Lisa and everybody, loads more than I do about this. There are resources and information from the RCCM, Research Council for Complementary Medicine, and on the Shiatsu Research Network, which is a European organization, which I was involved in. They're a little bit quiet at the moment, basically because there's not enough person power. But the SRN suggests that a simple way to start research is a case report. And they've actually wrote articles in our journal about that. And the other main thing is PROMS report, patient-reported outcome measurement tools, which can give different information about how the patients, how they measure what's going on with them. And so I just gave some examples here. MyMop and MyCore are now under license. They used to be free. When the Shiatsu Society used MyMop in the past, it was free. It is now not. And I have been, I spoke with, I emailed the measurement people, and they've come back and they've given me prices. So it's not cheap, but it is possible. The Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale is a free tool, and that is looking at mental well-being. The Oswestry lower back pain questionnaire was something that Emma told me about recently, and in fact I downloaded that. It seems to be free, and have been using it with my clients at the moment who have got back pain. I seem to have all new clients with back pain at the moment, and that is all of my information. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and there we are. It looks like Barbara has disappeared, which is probably what she is saying in the chat. Yes, jolly good. All righties. So oh no, don't end the meeting. Goodness me. Close that bit. Okay, all right. So there we are. Kind of feel like saying over to you, or any questions, or what do you want to talk about now?
I think that's quite useful information. Is that available on the members?
It
site?
will be. I only invented it this afternoon.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I will tidy it up with some help from my friends like you guys, and from Ruth, who is very wonderful about doing this kind of stuff, and probably Emma as well, who's also very good at yeah, hi Emma. And then yes, we'll put it up on the website for members to be able to have a look at. Most of the information in there is already available on the research pages, so things like the link to RCCM and so on, but maybe not. I've also got a whole load of PDFs of research, so you know, the Professor Long, you know, the Robinson et al. And the MyMop one, but also things that there was a Japanese one on lower back pain. There was another couple that I have got PDFs of, and those could possibly be put up in the research area as well, if people are interested.
Oh, I'm not on mute. I think it's not a bad idea. It's all there. It's just, it's good when things are brought together.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, that you know, sometimes people see research and they look at it as being so complicated, and really what I wanted to emphasize today was the fact that actually having effective research affects us all. If we want to be spreading Shiatsu wider, which is what our vision for the society is to be able to stand up a little bit more with it. And I guess it does depend on, you know, how much you want to be able to stand up. But, you know, you look at other therapies and you look at what they have done, and it's just like one of the IHC colleagues had done, you know, reflexology and migraine. And it's just like they can now say that reflexology can be effective for migraine, but we can't say that about Shiatsu because we haven't got the research to back it up.
Do you know who that study was funded by? Not to get off track of Shiatsu, but I mean,
I am not sure, but having looked at it recently and having spoken to Tracy, who did it in the past, I think they had 6 different practitioners. They may have used MyMop. I'm not sure if they did, but it was reported in Journal of Complementary Medicine, I do believe. So I can certainly find out who funded it. And it could be that they may have funded it themselves, bearing in mind that they are a larger association than we are. They have about 5,000 members. And their stated policy, having spoken to their CEO, is to use the money that they have to invest in things that is going to promote reflexology. And we have kind of the same financial policy within the society, that we are, you know, being careful with our money, and we are only spending it on things that are going to be of direct benefit to the members. And one could say that a research project might be of direct benefit to members.
I think when Lisa and I we had a little spate of having a lot of energy for collaborating, didn't we, Lisa, at one point of being on the research committee, and we did draw up what we thought was going to be the best value for money way to spend a small amount of research funding, if you remember. And I don't know what happened to it, because people tend to want to go, I want to do my own research project, but we kind of felt like the thing that would be more cost effective would be, for example, giving people a small bursary to spend time writing up and getting their studies published if people have done research. So we had a whole list of stuff that we put together, which I don't know really, I think that kind of went into abeyance after that really. But the kind of sense of like, there are people who might have done stuff maybe as part of a master's, as Barbara as Lisa was saying, or maybe as, you know, different things where people might have done something where actually if it then becomes something in the public domain, if you could apply to the Shiatsu Society to have a small amount of money, it wouldn't even need, it's kind of a bit more feeling like you've got the society at your back to kind of do something more than actually, you know, funding you to stop work for a few months to work on it. But I think that kind of thing where actually there's some capacity, it's not necessarily about sort of, and I'm sure I've still got all the documents on my computer somewhere because I don't really get around to deleting things, but that sense of like having a little bit of support for people who are already engaged to then be able to get things out, kind of thing, might be something that's worth kind of bringing back into the frame a bit. And I mean, I don't really know what level of evidence would be enough to satisfy the Advertising Standards Authority. You know, how much would you need to have? Obviously that's a lower bar to reach than getting on a NICE guideline, for example. You know, that's a much higher kind of level of having full thousands of meta-analyses of psychotherapy. You know, it's like that you need a massive kind of bulk of research to be getting into that kind of level, but presumably ASA is easier to
I would think so, if we can get them past their kind of fixation on randomized controlled trials. If we could get them to accept a properly conducted PROMS project, something like that. I would have thought that, but at the moment that's still under negotiation. Yeah, but going back to what you were saying about the pot of money, this actually really dovetails in with what we had been saying a year or so ago within the board of the society, because we haven't had a research committee for a while, and because our ethos now is to try and encourage the members to do the work. So it's a grassroots bottom up thing rather than top down, the society is going to do the research and you're going to fund it. It's the other way around. It's exactly that, you know, you're interested in this, or we all see a need for this. Let's then put together something. And I had an idea, rather than having a committee in my head, I was calling it a research hub, with people kind of pooling their expertise and you know, being able to help somebody who wanted to do a particular project, and then if the society had some money, that would be made available. And that was something that our previous treasurer, Elaine West, had said would certainly be the case. Yeah.
And I think that sounds great, actually. I was going to introduce the notion as well of, you know, I think with this idea of a hub, the MyMop, I mean, you haven't said how much it costs, Elaine, but if it is within the price bracket of the society, is that to use the digitized version of MyMop and MyCall, or is it?
I would have thought that for ease, in a way, then doing the digital one might be possible. Okay. And Helen did send me her information today. If we just want a paper license for all members, then it's £51.20 for a paper license per year, and they can do reduced prices on training courses. If it is the specialised discount, £99 per year for registered members. I'm still not entirely clear whether that, so each member who wanted to do research would then have to pay £99, which seems...
I'm wondering about, though, if the society buys access to a digitized version. I don't know how the data would be saved.
That was what I wanted.
And it cuts
or if you have something whereby people are kind of working together, it might just be that one person needs to be the researcher, as it were, and, you know, they might have 10 practitioners who were linking with them who were actually using it. You might only need potentially one license for the person who's collecting all the data together if you were going to do it like that. You know, it might not be that every individual, if there was one person who was holding the center of the research, that, you know, that might be possible.
Right. I mean, I think we'd need to pay somebody for that, because if we did what could become in effect a massive audit of Shiatsu, what does Shiatsu treat? What do people come to Shiatsu for? What are their concerns? And what, I know you're about to say something, Elaine, I'll just quickly finish this. But if we would need then to check how the data is stored. I know it seems like a very boring issue, but it's really important. And it can be used then to feed into funding for perhaps some kind of a clinical trial. Would that be an RCT? I don't know. The amount of funding you need is massive for that, but yeah, it's something really to think. I think it's something workable. Sorry, Elaine. Go.
No, not at all. It's just, you know, when you said the kind of things that people come to Shiatsu for, but that was already covered in the Professor Long study. That you know, that was one of the bits of analysis, I do believe, that came out of that, and you guys who were involved in the analysis can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there were conclusions made about the kind of things that people came with.
But I think it depends what you mean by what they came with, because it's like, if what you mean is a clinically diagnosed, medically diagnosed particular condition, that wasn't what we set out to identify. So we wouldn't have been able to say, for example, this many people had generalized anxiety disorder, this many people had PTSD, this many people had, you know, you wouldn't have said that. You would have said people who are coming with emotional issues or mental health issues or something like that. So you wouldn't have picked up in that if that's what you're interested in. But, you know, I kind of, what we were looking at in that, because it was me who designed that measure of the which looked at what were people coming with, and that was trying to look at it from a Shiatsu perspective, because that we wanted to feel that we were looking at it not from a medical point of view, like, can I say that Shiatsu is good for migraine, but looking at it from a Shiatsu point of view, where some people don't come because they've got any medically diagnosed problem. They become because it's part of their personal growth, because it's part of their lifestyle, because they've got problems with their body structures, and actually trying to devise a measure that actually measured what people were coming in with from a Shiatsu point of view. And that's what we were trying to do. But that doesn't fit with an advertising sort of perspective where you can say people with migraine, you can say people who have problems with their body structure, or people who have whatever. But it's a different way. So if you were auditing to look at, and with MIMOP it would be different again, because then it would be people identifying their own specific thing, which might be, I can't walk up the stairs, or I can't hold my daughter, or I want to be able to, I want to be pain-free, or whatever it is. That would again be different. That wouldn't be, I've got migraines and then they're made better by Shiatsu. So it wouldn't intersect with an advertising agenda.
Yeah, thanks.
But it could be structured such that those, you know, like the way the European Shiatsu study ran, whereby practitioners were recruited, and they in turn introduced the study to their clients, and they participated as they would. There could be something like that. So it's not that every patient or every client that you see completes the questionnaire. Those with a particular condition, because I do get a lot of people who come and say, well, I've just been diagnosed with blah blah blah, and I'm struggling with it. So you would say, well, that's a bit the mental health side of it, but it's also the symptom side of it as well. Like, a lot of my patients would be suffering with nauseousness. I say patients when I'm working in the hospital environment, and clients when I'm working in my private clinic. But I think it's doable, but I think we need to have some caveats in, you know, would need to be structured?
I think, you know, my feeling is that we would have to choose very carefully what we wanted to focus upon, and then choose very carefully what kind of methodology, you know, if we were going to do a proms thing, then, you know, which tool would we use for which. You know, the MIMOP, as Lisa has said in the past, it's very well accredited and so on. My core is very good for you know, well-being. There is a new Warwick one whose acronym escapes me, which is much wider, and it's got quite a, it's not the Warwick Edinburgh one. It's it's has specifically been created with complementary therapies in mind. But again, it involves a license, and I didn't inquire about that one. But it's looking at a much more all round, you know, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual aspect of things. Yeah. So I think we would need to be, you know, if we wanted to recruit members into doing some kind of research, then we would have to choose that very carefully. If even it is the time to do that at the moment, which it may not be.
Why do you doubt the timing, Elaine? What's your thinking behind that?
Oh, only a slight Monday pessimism, looking at the number of people that have turned up for this, and the number of people who are coming forwards and volunteering to do necessary work in the world, and thinking, well, are people actually going to see the benefit for themselves and actually want to be involved? And it's quite interesting reading through the MIMOP project that was done. No, that's not that one. In that, I think in the end they only got, yeah, they only got 7 practitioners to really sign up, and not many of them. Yes, number of practitioners 7, number of clients 53, number completing 10 sessions only 10. You know, it's quite, yeah, quite hard.
I think if you're going to do something like where you're wanting Shiatsu practitioners to participate, it's like we've got to remember that our actual numbers are really low of how many people are practicing and seeing a lot of clients.
Yeah.
And I think you need somebody who's on a mission to do it and who's going to bring their kind of charisma and their, you know, get up and go to it. If you want to have something that's kind of, that's something that's spread, you know, and I think one of the problems maybe as well, but if you're looking at people who are kind of full-time or, you know, say half-time or more kind of Shiatsu practitioners, you're down to quite a low number, and of those people quite a lot of them are teaching. And so it means that, you know, personally I feel like I can't possibly take on trying to run a research project because I'm trying to run a branch of a Shiatsu school, and look, I'm doing well with my students, look here.
Yes.
Managing to recruit them and getting them all infused into coming to do things, but it's like that kind of sense of, yeah, it would be great if people had a kind of really clinical practice where something like MIMOP would just fit in. But I kind of feel like, you know, a lot of my clients, I've been seeing them for 20 years. It's like, yeah, I could drop in a kind of, would you like to fill in this questionnaire? But it's not the same as having a lot of new referrals, you know. And it's like, so I kind of wonder whether there's something about setting things up, say in a kind of, you know, if you were to set something up with a kind of clinic setting and whatever, but it's like that takes a lot of energy. So that's always my query, is like kind of where does the energy come from to, it's not that I don't think research is good and really useful. I think it really, really is. And Lisa, I know we had conversations back in the day about looking in the other direction. So rather than always thinking like, how do we show that Shiatsu works, to kind of go, well, what could we learn from research as Shiatsu practitioners, you know, and that also being part of, which I'm sure was probably there in your work, Lisa, when you were doing the research, of like looking at what is actually happening in the sessions that's gonna help, you know.
I quite like the idea of the bursary. I think if somebody is thinking that this would be like a research kind of support group, or whatever we're calling this, is going to be about doing some massive piece of research about something specific, perhaps, you know, by talking about a bursary and making it quite individual, like Hannah was saying, that it might actually appeal to more people, and particularly if they have an interest in something already, that bursary may help kind of focus a little bit more, and then perhaps writing some sort of case study, was it, for the Shiatsu Research Network case report or something like that. It might be kind of a good start, rather than kind of aiming for something really perhaps quite high and perhaps a little bit unattainable. We kind of reach for something that's easier and much more likely to happen. And maybe, you know, even if it's only 5 people do it, that's a start, and perhaps, you know, and then something else may build from that, rather than perhaps focusing. I know the ASA is really, you know, an important part for us to be able to advertise what we're doing, but you know, maybe that's an end goal almost, rather than stage 1, perhaps that's stage 5 or something. I don't know, that was just
Emma, I think you're absolutely spot on really with that, because I mean, in medical research, and I know, Hannah, I've said this before, a good case study can trump something like a cohort study if it's well done. It's how you frame it, and how well the case study, how transparently it's presented, and the issues of bias and, you know, maybe to do with self-promotion. We want our practice to look like it's doing great things. But a good case study can be so illustrative of the intervention itself, Shiatsu, and how it's administered, and what can happen with it. And I know in medicine, if there's, you know, suddenly an activity people start doing, and all those who are suffering with diabetes are spontaneously better, their insulin is there in balance, you know, just to follow that cohort or do a case series on that, and that could change the course of treating people with diabetes. You know, they're very powerful case studies, and if we frame it back to the ASA in that way, if they are research savvy, they should have some sympathy with that perspective, given that we're small in number. I don't know, what is the number of Shiatsu practitioners, or those on the register at the moment? Whatever it is, I don't think it's anything like the number of reflex.
I think there's about 450.
451 at last week.
Excellent remembering, Emma Stanley. Well done.
Yeah.
But I think of those people, how many of them are actually practicing full-time, or, you know, like half-time plus? I think that's quite low. You know, yeah. I don't think that's not 450 people who are basically like, you know, like I think if you look at osteopaths, most of them probably are practicing, seeing a good old number of people a week, whereas I don't think that's the case with Shiatsu practitioners, even people who are on the, you know, who are on the register. That's my sense of it. And I think you found it a bit tricky, didn't you, recruiting practitioners, Lisa, when you were doing your research? It was harder than you were expecting.
It was. Well, those who would really engage with a patient population, which I can understand, because we don't train to be practitioners to work with a patient population. That's not how Shiatsu works. But I was also trying to speak to the wider healthcare community that does look at illness first, and the way we look at people second, looking at the person.
I mean, it may be. Sorry, no, after you.
I think in terms of the sort of research hub thing, I think like when I was running the research subcommittee, which I was off and on in various situations, it can be quite a lot of work if people are like kind of wanting to ask you, how do I do this, how do I do that, you know, like that was my feeling. And it potentially can be quite, you know, quite rewarding if people are kind of realistic about what they want to do, you know. And I think the importance of like kind of getting some good advice early on, like you would do if you're doing a master's, for example. Maybe you can get a nice load of publications out of your students, Lisa, if you get some people in there. But it's like getting some of that advice early, because otherwise you've done the research and then you go, oh, I didn't ask them that at the beginning, and like now it's all a bit scuppered because, you know, I've not got the information in the right order. And that's important if you're doing research. And that's always what I kind of think of, like I had somebody come and see me who had like a really quite a severe sort of like shoulder impingement, and she'd had surgery and and then she came for some shiatsu and it just totally got better. Then she went back to the surgeon and he was like, oh, I don't need to do a second thing now because it hadn't worked, the first surgery. And I kind of thought that would have been quite good for like a case report, because I did totally mend her shoulder in about 2 goes. But it's like at that point I hadn't already done the, you know, I'm not going to be like using MIMOP like with all my clients. I don't know, it's kind of, so it's like how whether you can kind of back trace it with somebody where you kind of go, because she's got her scans and her, you know, she's got all that actual medical information about how her shoulder didn't move. She couldn't, you know, she couldn't, the day that she came and said, now I can wash my under my armpit, it was a big step because she could put her arm like this again. But it's like things like that where there is something really specific that you can see, and she has got that medical stuff will be in her history. But post hoc, presumably you can't really kind of identify that as a case.
You could a retrospective case study like that with access to all the data. Gosh, Hannah, get writing.
Well, I mean, I would have thought, because you know, when you have a new client, you have an intake form anyway, you know, your client questionnaire. Okay, right. So because, you know, that is something that I do feel that we should say to members is really important. I mean, apart from the, you know, writing up for insurance purposes about what you have done, but having, you know, having a client questionnaire or something as a starting off point.
It's a whole big debate for me, Elaine. I'm really kind of quite against it, particularly with the client population that I have. But
okay, yeah. All right. Interesting, because, you know, I find that my boards actually want to, you know, quite happy to talk about themselves, and this whole spate of people that I've had with back pain. I mean, I've had like 5 of them recently, and since Emma had mentioned the Oswestry lower back pain or back pain
disability,
yeah, disability. That's it. Yeah, I mean, I've got about 5 of them doing that, and some of them have done it once, twice. I think I've got somebody about to do it for the 3rd time, so I can actually see what kind of results we're getting, and that's not been hard at all.
I think the only other idea that I've got, and when we're talking about, if we're not aiming for a specific goal like migraine or back pain or having a specific medical condition, but actually from the Shiatsu perspective, looking at the person, was Kirsty from Shiatsu for Change said that if we provide the questionnaires, she'll get her people doing the Shiatsu to fill them out, and then she'll just send them off for whoever to analyse. So she doesn't want to be involved in any of that other gubbins, but she's very happy to have her people fill out the questionnaires, and that could be an interesting way an interesting start, because obviously it's just she tends to deal with a specific group of people, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So I don't know what you think about that. I know that she's about to start another project next year that she has lottery funding for.
Is that for the refugee one?
There's the refugee one, and then there's also the women. She's got 2 on the go next year: the refugee one, and then also the women's one that she's done before. I
think we should deputise Tanya to do the refugee one, surely. She said she would. So Emma's one of my just graduating students, and so's Ludmilla, and Tanya, who's another one in their class.
Yes. I'm well aware.
But she couldn't come today because her daughter's ill. But she was saying her response was, oh, there's always some funding you can get. That's not too difficult. And she works in the kind of field of like refugees and migrations, and she. So I thought maybe she could. Maybe that would seek in closely enough with her work to be involved in that refugee.
Kirsty's already got funding for the one, hasn't she? So I mean, I kind of feel that if we're looking at that initial, let's have a go at doing something, it's already there. There's somebody already there waiting.
Yeah. So maybe we could have a discussion with Kirsty. I'm aware we've just gone over the hour. I don't know if we're going to be cut off or not. But maybe we could have a talk with Kirsty. I can go back to the Meaningful Measures people to find out exactly how much they would be charging, and if it is for every single practitioner who is using the questionnaire, or if they could be a centralized person.
Do we have to have like some sort of ethics committee and all that business? I don't know. I don't know enough about that.
Lisa is the one who was looking into the ethics question.
Yeah, ideally, yes. I mean, if we're to do formal research, that's why I mean, I'm not trying to be, I don't know what the word is, something that isn't good by not declaring it as research. But an audit you wouldn't need ethics for. But what we would ideally need to do is to team up with a university, and I'm sort of toying with an idea in my mind of looking at the health economics as a provision of Shiatsu as a complementary medicine and helping people post-COVID. I think that would be something that would have legs. And but if we're to conduct a formalized research study, we need to do that with a research active institution. And I'm just trying to think of where there's a place I used to work and others who might be who might have an appetite to pursue some funding for that. But
otherwise Tanya's your go-to woman. Maybe she's a professor at the University of Manchester, but not in a sort of clinical field. But she might be able to, she's still in an institution. Yeah, those of us who are outside the institution, it's rather different, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do have the Northern College of Acupuncture, but I think it's something to discuss perhaps with them, and if there are students who are interested in looking into that. We don't teach health economics, but I was thinking those who do health economics, it might be something of interest to them. I need to speak to a few different people and see who, if there is anybody out there who would be interested, because without there being any prescribed medical intervention for long COVID, I think there is a huge role for complementary medicine to play. I was talking to a colleague as well today who's a herbalist, and she was saying how prior to when did the NHS come into being? Was 1947 or 45 or around then? That people would first go to a herbalist before they went to a medical doctor, and because you could afford that, and medical herbalists were so well trained and gave people good advice, and people did well in it. But obviously, with the advent of the NHS, of course, people would want to go to a doctor, but the herbalists are still doing the same kind of good work behind the scenes, but it wouldn't necessarily be recognized, and there wouldn't be the formalized research to support it. So there is, it's a real support of what point you were making at the beginning, Elaine, about why we need to do research where it's about communicating with the wider healthcare community and with the medical professions, and saying to them, no, we don't do the same as you, but we can do this. This is what we have to offer. And like when I think back to Zoe's study, there was less call on the general practitioner's time while people were receiving shiatsu. I mean, that's
and I kind of think, surely there's a massive role for people managing their health conditions while they're on a waiting list. That's the other area at the moment that you would think is going to be very, very active for quite a long time, where you're not saying this person doesn't need a medical intervention. You're saying, well, they've got to wait 2 years, so how can they have and in a way then that potentially gets around some of the sort of ethics issues of, like, one of the ethical things that would come up is if they're having shiatsu, are you keeping them away from something that would be, a better treatment that they might otherwise be having? But with so many people on waiting lists at the moment, there's that sense of, there is, as well as the long COVID, there is that space as well of being like people who know that they're waiting, and like how it is to, whether people can remain economically active and things like that when they're waiting, which I think is very different from how things would have been a few years ago. But I know, when I was kind of around in the research kind of scene, there was, a lot of conversations about, can you, if you're not doing a randomized control trial, can you compare to normal practice? These are your other ways of doing it, that you say, well, let's compare normal practice, which at the moment is, try to send an email to your GP and be told you've had too many emails today and you can't send one until tomorrow, but that sense of, like, it's not necessarily comparing, it might be comparing to normal management rather than comparing to a placebo. It's like, that's also a perfectly good way of doing things. So that if you are looking for something that's a little bit more, to kind of a way to go in and get a little bit higher order evidence, because you've got your kind of cascade of evidence, you've got your, and I kind of think you've got your Cochrane review, which shows that acupressure works. You only need to have it on one point, which last time I looked, it was all it was, but to show that Heart Protector 6 is as good against nausea as any antiemetic medication. So it's like you've shown the basic principle there, that acupressure or shiatsu can be effective. It can be as effective as a medical intervention for that, and it's for nausea in lots of different settings. It's just as good. So it's like there's that sort of sense of, if you're using things for advertising or whatever, surely that, Cochrane review is the highest level of research credibility, and then you've got kind of randomized controlled trials, but then you've got these other, trial against normal management, or equally against sort of best practice, and I think if somebody was looking, I think, to kind of look, what are the conditions for which NICE recommends acupuncture, because surely those would be ones to get in on. If it's like,
I don't think they do recommend acupuncture for much anymore. It keeps getting taken off.
Okay, well, but this thing that I read in New Scientist said it was still recommended for a particular type of pain, which is the kind of a kind of pain that's not really, it's not from damage in the body, it's and the guy may have been out of date, but he was writing in New Scientist. He's one of their features guys, so you'd think he probably checked it out.
I hope he checked.
There is a NICE review going on at the moment, actually, which I haven't had time to look at. But yeah.
Emma, are you a researcher yourself?
No.
Okay.
But she could be.
That's a very, very
training.
Oh, Emma, do you want to do a master's program? We've got a really good one.
He's already said it's expensive.
It's too expensive for me.
Or you could just do modules.
Could just do one-to-one research with me and Lisa, but you wouldn't get any qualification at the end.
I mean, it's something that I'm interested in, because I'm interested in it for because I want Shiatsu to be known for what it can do. Yeah. And I've seen what it can do, but nobody knows about it. And that's really frustrating. Yeah. And I go into a hospice once a week and I do what I do. Nobody has any idea what I'm doing. Nobody's even really kind of knows anything about Shiatsu. When I keep saying, well, you should have one, and they're kind of like, oh no, we're not allowed. I'm like, I don't believe that for a second, that I'm allowed to work on seriously ill people, but I'm not allowed to do you. And they really don't even really know what I'm doing. They just know that actually the patient seems better for a few days and whatever. But it just seems really strange that they've never heard of Shiatsu, but they're perfectly happy to talk about Bowen, or perfectly happy to talk about something called the Emmett technique, which I'd never heard of either. And how do all these therapies get so well known, but Shiatsu doesn't? And
I think it's probably around particular. I think it'll be around particular areas and particular people as well, though. So it might be that if there's somebody in your local area who is well known and has worked on a lot of influential people, it's all that kind of thing. It's not necessarily about which things have the most research backing. It can also be, you know, when I did this evidence review for NICE, it was looking at like which kinds of psychotherapy were better, was what they really wanted to look at. And, you know, really what you found was that there was more research evidence for CBT than there was for other things. But that's because the people who do CBT are the sort of people who like to do research and have some nice forms and fill them in and tick some boxes. And the people who want to do like psychodynamic therapy, a bit like where I've come to at the moment, they don't really want to fill the forms in, and therefore they're not really doing the research. And so it's like trying to kind of say, like being in front of these medical audiences and saying, well, there's more evidence for CBT, but there isn't any evidence that CBT is any better. It's just that there's more, because and then actually later I think that kind of changed. But and there's another kind of effect, which is about being at the forefront of things. When you're like the people who've made something up, you're so full of gusto about it, and you come in and it shows a much higher level of efficacy, and then once it's kind of then it isn't so high later on. So there's all these sort of complexities really, but I don't think it's, I mean, you know, for me, I suppose where I've gone to is you better train some more practitioners and get a few more people doing Shiatsu, and that's the way with it. But I mean, it would be good to have more research evidence out there. But what the best strategy is for that, and whether it's something where it's important to have a cohesive strategy, or whether it's something that's good to do. I mean, if somebody's got enthusiasm, it's great to do anything piecemeal, you know, really. If somebody says, oh, I want to do this project and whatever, but it's like, if you're going to have a strategy, like what that should be is,
and I think that's the main thing. And I suppose having had this meeting, which I'm going to close very shortly, I think that that's what we've come down to. We've kind of talked about where we're all at with research. We've talked about kind of where the society's at, and to go forwards, then yes, we need to have some kind of a focus and strategy for where we're going to go, and how that must align with the Shiatsu Society's vision and strategy for itself. So we have to look at that.
I'm going to have to go soon, because I've not had any dinner actually.
Okay, well, so I think it would be nice just to all unmute and say thank you very much for contributing. Personally, I found it very helpful, and I hope if anybody is listening in later on, they will find it helpful as well. I guess I will try and write up some minutes or something. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's great, very interesting. Thank you for everyone.
Yeah, Ludmila, any comments from you?
I'm absorbing. I have lots to absorb today.
Okay.
I really do. But thank you. That was really, food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I will be in touch. I will be in touch.
Thanks.
Great.
Good
Thank
seeing
you. Nice to see you all.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye.